and welcome to the Women's Marketing Podcast. I'm Laura Blacklaws and I'm co-founder of the Women's Marketing Club. Now, it's a glorious, sunshiny Friday evening, and I already know that my interviewee today has a bottle of wine on ice to enjoy once we've finished this interview. So let's get cracking. The incredible lady in business who I'm speaking to today is Rebecca Sessions, who is a physiotherapist that qualified in 2004. It's something she always wanted to do after seeing her mum receive the treatment and being allowed to put the electric bed up and down. Wow, Rebecca, so you've got a really, really new business. How are you finding it all?
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Really, really enjoying it so far. It's a bit of a change from being just a physio to going into business and learning all that side of things as well. But yeah, so far so good. Thank you.
So had you always kind of trained to be a physiotherapist as a part-time job to supplement income, or was it always your dream to open your own clinic?
Yeah, it's always been my dream. I mean, I knew from being very little that I wanted to go and be a physio. So I went straight from sixth form. I went to the University of Hertfordshire and did 3 years training there. And then I got my first job full-time for the NHS, working over in Luton as a physio. And then I've kind of gone on from there, and I was lucky enough to win a scholarship. So I've done a postgraduate training in women's health as well. So I've got sort of two aspects to what I do now. And with having a family, I'm not fully full-time, but I'm certainly very busy 6 days a week.
You said that you've kind of always wanted to be a physio. What or who would you say inspired you to want to be a physio?
Well, I used to go along to physio sessions. My mum had a whiplash when I was probably about 2 or 3, and I used to go along and obviously saw my mum getting better, but I was allowed to make the electric bed go up and down. And I always thought, that's what I want to do. I want to have an electric bed to go up and down. And the ironic thing is, I still only have a foot pump one. I have yet to reach the limits of an electric bed.
Oh, we can all have dreams. If
yeah,
is a dream, you go for it.
I'll get there one day. My 2-year-old inner self will be very happy.
Absolutely. Was there anything that made you take that leap to working for the NHS and then setting up on your own?
Yeah, so I moved on from the NHS after 3 years, and I went into private work, and I was working doing some consultancy work, and found out that I was going to be made redundant. And I thought, you know, I've got the experience, my job's at risk, what am I going to do? And I thought, I've always wanted this, why don't I just go ahead and get on with it? So yeah, that's how it sort of came about.
And it must have been quite a scary decision to make. You've already mentioned that you've got a young son. And I think a lot of the women who are going to be listening to the podcast today are probably in the exact same boat. You know, they've got young children, they've got a family, and that security actually is worth a lot more than the fear of the unknown.
Absolutely. And one of the things, you know, I went to look at the room that I'm going to be renting, and I was driving back and I spoke to my husband and I told him how much it was going to be a month, and he was like, oh, you know, that sounds a lot. You know, especially because I'm not living in that locality at the moment, although that's a dream for the future. And I spoke to my mum, and she was saying, oh, you know, you're going to have to take a leap of faith to kind of go with that one. And I was like, yeah, I'm not sure about this at all. And as I pulled on the driveway, my lawn was covered in white feathers. And my dad, unfortunately, passed away about 4 years ago. And I always see white feathers as a little message from him. And the lawn was just covered. And I was like, right, that's it. I'm going for it. Yeah. Absolutely going for it. So, yeah, I know it's a strange one, but that was my absolute push there.
No, not at all. And I think it's sometimes these little quirks that we believe in that actually push us to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was sort of there in my mind, and then I'm thinking, oh, I don't know, shall I, shan't I? Am I going to be good enough? Am I a good enough businesswoman? I don't know the internet that well. And actually, you know, I'm learning it all, and there's so many supportive people out there that help and want to help. Yeah. And I think, you know, and it's just that sort of getting other people and letting them help you. I think that's the biggest thing.
So this all sounds really positive. And again, you know, you are kind of really new to setting up your own business, but what would you say has been the best thing about it so far?
So much that I have learned, and the people that I've met along the journey albeit a short one so far. I think these people are sort of almost meant to have come into my life, and hopefully, that feeling's mutual. So I would just say it's got me out a lot more, and it's made me a lot more confident than I probably was, even though it seemed a very scary journey right at the start.
I think that's the fear factor, isn't it? It's not knowing. And I recorded a podcast recently with a vintage singer called Alexandra Jones, and she said that actually one of the best things about setting up on her own is that you have to force yourself to learn new skills.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, physios are dinosaurs in some senses, that we write notes, the majority of us, still by hand. So, anything that is to do with advertising and working on a computer and everything, you've got the basic skills, but you've still got a lot to learn. And that's definitely somewhere I'm still working on.
And it's something that you'll always work on. I mean, I set up my own business 5 years ago, and I'm still learning, but that's actually part of the fun.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it, and I think because I've got the support of other people and I've made myself get out there and do some networking, that's why it's working for me.
That's brilliant, and it's a great thing to hear as well. And I think, as I've said, many of the women who are going to be listening to this podcast are in the same boat as you. They've kind of been forced into a situation that they can't control, and they know that they do have another talent that they can rely on to bring in money. It's just taking that step forward. So having you being interviewed today is fantastic. So thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Have you faced any difficult challenges to get to where you have, or get to where you are today?
Across my career, I have, I suppose. Yeah. There's personal things I mentioned before. I lost my dad very suddenly in a road traffic accident. That was a big hurdle for me to get over and sort of face the world again afterwards. From a career point of view, I've always made it quite apparent to everybody that I suffer with ME, which is also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. And I've really had to learn to pace myself and make sure that I use my energy to the best ability. And I think that's something that I've really learned through this journey, is that a lot of the things that you try, that you get in your head that you're worrying about, actually they're not worth using your energy up on. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
And have you kind of sought any outside help to overcome that hurdle, or is it just something that you've literally had to experience yourself and adapt to learning?
With the ME, I saw doctors and things before I got it diagnosed, but a lot of it was from self-reading and trial and error. I was lucky enough to get some counselling through work as well for when I lost my dad, which really helped me sort of get over that. And it's been amazing, the support that I've had from that as well.
I mean, it's fantastic to hear. I mean, how many people do you know who you hear of with ME or other kind of illnesses that just decide, oh, I need to stop work, I can't go to work, I'm too tired?
Yeah, it would have been an easy option, but I'm quite a determined person, and I like to think that I am always going to do the job that I love, because that's what it comes down to. I always knew I wanted to be a physio, and it sounds like a cliche, but I do. I absolutely love my job. Bit of a workaholic, if we're being honest. But I wouldn't be me anymore if I wasn't doing it. I love making people better. So and just chatting with people, get to know so much about my patients, about their life. It's not just a clinical thing. So yeah, I wouldn't be without it.
And as a self-confessed workaholic, it must be more difficult for you to kind of slow down and listen to your own body, because you're giving so much to your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing that I've learned along the route. And I think the nice thing about working for myself is that I can change my hours to fit in, with my life and my lifestyle. And also, it's not just that I'm on the rat run, and I can actually give myself a bit more time with my patients, and I could give myself a bit more time afterwards and in between and things. So that's the flexibility of working for yourself, I suppose.
And time's that commodity that everybody strives for more of. We all need more time, when actually, if you just kind of step back and take stock, everyone's got the same 24 hours in the day. It's what you do with that time when you have it.
Yeah, and how you use it. Absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. So before you set up, or Now, as you're experiencing it, is there a piece of advice that you wish somebody had shared with you?
Do it sooner. Yeah, absolutely, do it sooner. Yeah.
There we
Simple
go,
as that.
ladies. A no nonsense answer from Rebecca there. Do it sooner. But it is something I hear quite often when I've been recording podcasts is, yeah, just do it.
Yeah, I think you've just got to commit. You've got to jump in with 2 feet, and you've just got to think of the positives. And you know, yes, there can be negatives, there can be bumps along the road. There is negativity in life, but also there's a lot more positivity, and it's that you've got to focus on and just go for it.
Just do it. I love that. Now, you said earlier on in the interview that you're not great with computers and technology. As a physio, have you had to kind of get your head around using specific software for booking appointments or updating the website even?
Yeah, so I initially did my own website, which was the easiest package ever out there, but it's not that great. So actually, I've got somebody who's going to be doing a new website for me. The thing that I have been using more recently is Canva. So I've had to learn how to use that so that I can do some of my sort of social media advertising and make it look a little bit different and maybe stand out from the crowd a little bit.
And Canva, I think as well, it's quite an easy platform, isn't it, to understand? It's not too difficult if you're not coming from a design background.
No, absolutely not. And I was taught how to use it on a computer, but I realised that actually I can use it on my mobile phone as well. So obviously, being a busy mum and being here, there and everywhere, I can do it in the car whilst I'm waiting to pick my son up from school. You know, it's as easy as that once you've got your head around it, which doesn't take that long, because if I can do it, honestly, anybody can do it. You know, and I can do it wherever I want to now. So it's not even that I've got to, you know, think, oh, I'll get the laptop out and I'll go and have half an hour and sit down. I literally can do a nice advert in 5 minutes. So it's brilliant.
That does sound totally awesome. I'm going to look into it. Would you say that social media is the biggest way that you attract clients at the moment?
Absolutely, yeah, because I'm trying to get into sort of the local community to make them aware that I'm there as a business, and I don't think I could really have done it very well without using social media. I mean, Facebook's been my biggest thing so far. I am using Instagram and Twitter as well, but it's certainly Facebook's been the best by far.
And I think that's the great thing about Facebook. As it evolves, it just seems easier to be able to connect to your target audience.
Yeah, it does, and it's quite nice because most towns and villages have got their own little groups. So you know, like there's a mums group, and I specialise in women's health, as I said before, and I'm quite passionate that I want people to realise that, you know, things like incontinence and stuff like that, there is treatment out there other than just, you know, having to use a liner and things like that. And actually, if you could talk about these things on social media, and then you could put a link at the bottom so that people can get in touch with you quickly at the time when they're thinking about it and they've seen it, then that's the best way to communicate, really.
Yeah, and I guess as well, that's really putting you out there as an expert in your field, because how many people would even know to think that?
Yeah, exactly. And like I say, one of the things that I'm passionate about doing is raising that awareness. So it's not just for me, you know, like everybody should be aware that there is a service out there, and it's because it's, you know, especially incontinence, it's a very taboo subject. People don't like talking about it. And you know, I think that's really important, that people are aware that it's a problem and that it shouldn't just be swept under the carpet. So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess that's a great thing as well about Facebook, is you can talk to a lot of people, and even if you're only speaking to 1 in 1,000, if you're helping that one person make positive change to their health,
that's absolutely my reason for doing this job. So if I can help 1 person in 1,000, even if it's not by seeing them myself, if it's that they, you know, that they seek help for it and they're aware that there's help out there, then I still feel like I've done my job.
brilliant. And that's exactly why I've set up the Women's Marketing Club. It's to help inspire other women to be the best that they can be in business? Because as you've said, as Alexandra Jones said on her podcast, you've got so many skills to learn, but we only know so much, because your specialist field is physiotherapy. Her specialist field was singing and performing. You don't automatically know how to use Canva. You don't automatically know how to use Facebook. So this is all stuff that is just inspiring people to learn and not be afraid.
Yeah, and to know what else is out there that you can use, because if it wasn't talking to other people, I wouldn't have known about Canva.
And that's a brilliant thing. I guess Canva probably started years and years ago, but as social media is evolving, people are now starting to want to produce their own adverts because it's quick and it's cheap and it's simple.
Yeah, and you can do it reactively as well. So it just works.
Fantastic. Well, it sounds like, you're really kind of getting to grips with everything, and, you're enjoying building a business around your lifestyle. Is there a way that our listeners can get in touch with you today if they wanted to hear more about your story, or even hear more about the incontinence, or even your physiotherapy treatments?
Yeah, I've got a website that is currently being updated, but there's some information on there. It's www.physiospecialist.co.uk, or I'm quite happy to be contacted by email, and it's wheathampsteadphysio@gmail.com.
Brilliant. And then finally, before I let you go to enjoy your bottle of wine this evening, is there a book or an influencer or anyone who's really helped you with your business that you'd recommend to our listeners?
Yeah, I was introduced to it by a friend of mine, actually, and it's a book that I think a lot of people have perhaps heard of, but not necessarily listened to or read it. I like it to use it as an audio book because it means I can do it when I'm doing other things. But it's The Secret, which is one of the books on the law of attraction and positivity, and the more that you're positive, the more you attract positivity. And I think that, even if it's not worked in the sense that it's meant to from the book, it's certainly changed my attitude towards the way that I'm doing things.
And that's the biggest learning curve, isn't it? Is you can take advice from any book. It doesn't necessarily have to be business related. And again, The Secret is something I've heard people talk about, but I've never read it.
Yeah, it's I think it's even a movie now as well, but it's certainly very enlightening, and I think you've got to be very open-minded to sort of go with the flow with it. But actually, even if you just make some of the changes that are suggested in there, I think it just makes the whole day-to-day living so much more positive.
And that's a great place to stop. Be more positive and just do it.
Yep.
They're definitely the two things I've taken away from this interview today. Thank you so much for your time, Rebecca. It's been really interesting talking to you and hearing about your journey, because you're kind of right at the start of launching your own business. So it's really exciting, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.